In less than 2 weeks, there could be 400,000 less trucks on the road in the United States. Today is Sunday, July 23rd, and as of right now, it looks like Yellow Corp is going to go bankrupt due to them not paying their union fees and not having the cash to do so. The other is UPS, and it looks like they are unable to pay the Teamsters what the drivers actually want in order to not strike, and the strike will occur on August 1st. So if both of these things happen, it would be very good for owner-operators in the spot market in the immediate term and shake up the trucking market a pretty good amount. So Yellow has 22,000 trucks in the United States operating and make up about 10% of the LTL market in the United States. They've been around for almost 100 years, and through all these looming discussions of strikes, they've been losing tons of customers. So I think the Yellow situation is actually broken down pretty well here, so let's watch.
Zach Strickland, you had a great state of freight. You covered a lot of this yesterday with our CEO and founder, Craig Fuller. Are we at the end of the line here for Yellow? It sure sounds like it. And if we're not, what does this mean for the market?
Yeah, I think it's a foregone conclusion at this point. I think it's done with regardless of whatever happens tonight or on Monday. The fact is that LTL networks are far more complicated than truckload networks, and any disruption or this amount of business being lost, loss of faith in general at this point is I think it's just too severe to overcome. The fact that they weren't able to get that $700 million to kind of give them a boost through what was arguably one of the best periods of time for freight during the pandemic when we had this huge boom. And now that the market's turned soft so quickly here over the last year, I don't think that there is really a good shot. I mean, they were having struggles for the previous decade, and without the support of the market behind them, I think it's a pretty clear-cut situation that they're already kind of dead in the water.
Interesting. Can the court save them, Matthew? They were talking about this Norris LaGuardia Act on that call, and I believe that was the Teamsters who were arguing that one on why that they can strike and they have the legal authority to go do so. I mean, people aren't getting paid here. I mean, they're not getting their benefits paid. They're not getting their pension.
Yeah, this is the issue. Yellow has about $100 million cash on hand, and that money is what's going to help them navigate what's happening over the next couple of weeks and months. But to preserve that capital, they had to make a conscious decision to not fund the pension. And what the result of that means is that on this Sunday, 11,000 families will lose their health insurance. And so what Yellow is trying to do is saying, look, we understand that we've made a mistake. We understand we consciously did this. We broke our contract, but we need time. If you strike, we're dead. So what they're trying to do is make a temporary restraining order that will stop the drivers, the Teamsters, from basically striking on Monday. And if they strike Monday, there's no way to come out of this. So what the Teamsters have come back with and said, the exception that you're outlining, no, we still can strike. This, what you're talking about, like the fact that there's a contract and a process for making disputes and making strikes. If you don't pay this, we can strike. And we are going to find out probably within minutes if that order is granted. If the temporary restraining order is granted, Yellow has some time. How long is anybody's guess? But if they don't get that restraining order, if the Teamsters are allowed to strike on Monday, that is it. There is nothing else but bankruptcy.
If you're the judge, what do you rule here?
So the primary problem here is that Yellow is burning cash, and they've been burning cash for decades at this point. But they've been able to do so because the government continues to bail them out. From the burning cash standpoint over the years, you could see here on Yellow's publicly traded financials that, yes, in 2022, they did make a profit of $21 million, but in the previous years, they were losing tons of money. Negative $109 million in 2021, negative $53 million in 2020, negative $104 million in 2019. But if we go more recently to the Q1 of 2023, they actually lost $54 million. So basically, they're losing over $50 million per quarter. They have $100 million left. They currently owe $50 million to the Teamsters. So if they paid the Teamsters, they would probably lose all the rest of their money within 60 days. So in the Wall Street Journal here, trucking company Yellow gained a reprieve from lenders, including requirements under a federal government loan of $700 million in the pandemic aid, as the company tries to reset its finances and restructure its operations. It's important to note here also that the U.S. Treasury owns 30% of Yellow as a company. So they do have some stake in the game. So from what I could see, even if they stop the strike, the only thing that would actually save Yellow here would be if Biden intervenes, which he might, because the U.S. Treasury owns 30% of Yellow. They would have to loan or give a subsidy to Yellow of probably about $500 million to $700 million, which I think you might see. I think outside of that black horse solution, they are guaranteed to go bankrupt. So on the other hand, we have Sean O'Brien here of the Teamsters leading UPS to their strike that would occur on August 1st if their demands are not met. So here's Sean O'Brien on the BBC.
What are the big sticking points?
The big sticking, we got 95% of the contract done right now. We need to take care of our members. We need to take care of our members. They need to reward the people that made them a success, and that's our rank and file members, 340,000. They made $100 billion, right? So they need to share the wealth.
So let's look at UPS's financials to see what the drivers feel that they are entitled to. So yes, UPS did $100 billion in revenue in 2022, but if we go to their quarterly financials, that is going down with the trucking recession. So while they do about $100 billion a year in revenue, they are doing about $13 billion a year in profit. And as you could see, quarter over quarter from 2022 to now, that is actually going down. So actually, if you look here at their net income, last quarter it was 1.9 billion. And before that, 3.4 billion, 2.5 billion, and 2.8 billion. So I threw this table together here to kind of just show why UPS might not want to pay its drivers more money and kind of like their perspective on things. Because it seems like if you're making $100 billion a year, that it would be very easy to just pay your drivers more money. Now, the company is valued at a multiple of 15.14 times its net income per year for the company value, right? So the company did $11.5 billion of net income in 2022, putting it at a value of $174 billion. Now, with the new pace that it's at with this new trucking market, it only did $1.9 billion of profit in Q1 of 2023. Therefore, at that multiple, multiply that by 4 because it's quarterly. The company has a new value now of $115 billion. So while it's still very valuable, the value has gone down by $60 billion since the end of 2022 to the end of Q1, which is probably continuing to go down. Now, with 340,000 drivers involved at UPS in the Teamsters, so if you paid each of the drivers, this is not per year, this is quarterly. So if you paid each of the drivers another $1,000 for every 3 months of work, so another $4,000 per year, if you put that into 340,000 drivers, that's an extra $340 million of expenses every quarter for UPS. Therefore, their new quarterly income, if it was the same as Q1, would be $1.5 billion, putting them at a total value of $94 billion. So if you're UPS and in not even a year's time, in 7 months' time, in 8 months, you are going from $174 billion of value to $94 billion. So if with this new market and with this new deal, now they haven't said what the deal would be, but $1,000 per quarter is pretty low. That would be like a 4% increase on the average UPS driver's income. UPS is being asked in a very short amount of time to be losing almost half of its company's value. So I have no positive or negative opinions on whether or not unions should exist or how they should behave. Honestly, I think with capitalism, it's all just fair and game. I'm just saying from the perspective of both sides, I could really see UPS holding out because they don't want to lose this type of value. Because if they lose this type of value, that means that they still have to compete with FedEx, who's not unionized, who probably has an easier time paying drivers a little bit less. That not only are they going to lose that company's value that I displayed there in terms of the net profit value multiple, but with having less profit, they're also going to be slightly less competitive in the market. I feel that UPS is slightly less likely than Yellow. I think Yellow is a foregone conclusion. I think that the thing is, even if the government comes in and gives them $500 to $700 million of a essentially treasury equity position because they have too much debt to pay more debt, that they're still going to go out of business in probably 2 to 3 years. So therefore, I think it's unlikely that the US will give them that money because they're going to lose the money anyway. Next, with UPS, I feel like the thought is that they're going to come to a deal, but I don't think people are factoring in how much value UPS has been losing in the last 7 months. And I think it's going to be even more. I bet they're losing more money, not losing money. They're making plenty of money, but you're asking them to take a real wound in being valued at 175 billion to 115 billion, and if they're making less money in quarter 2 than they are in quarter 1, then even lower than 94 billion, essentially erasing $90 billion of value from the air. So they want to keep that. I mean, they're really losing money for their shareholders in terms of company value. So while they might seem like a greedy corporation, they do have a job to do for the people who are putting all the money into the business. But I totally understand where the drivers are coming from also. I think Sean O'Brien's a pretty noble guy. I think he does a really good job. So we'll see what happens. I think all is fair. If it does happen, then the rates in trucking will go up, which would be good, obviously, for myself, for other owner-operators, trucking companies out there. But it'll be interesting to see what turns out. I just think this is my opinion. I think it will happen. I think they will go on strike. So putting the video out there, you'll see if I'm wrong. But thank you so much for listening and taking the time. Like and subscribe, and let me know where you think I might be wrong. Thank you.